back to Educate Ebony, the prog edition. Hope we're all well, recovered after the awesomeness that was last week's episode. I tell you what, with Jordan Rudess, last episode, it sounds like I held it together, but I can definitely tell you I was so nervous. It was ridiculous and very excited, of course, but it sounds like I wasn't, which I'm quite proud of. I held it together, was professional. But seriously, yeah, what a great chat. What a lovely man. And he told me to listen to Close to the Edge by Yes. Very excited to listen to them. I learned about them in my prog rock class back in uni, which if you listen to the previous episode with Richard Chu, who was my old uni lecturer for that class, learned about them then, but hadn't listened to this album. He said to listen to it on vinyl, so I literally went and bought the vinyl. Yep, did chuck it on my record player, and it's so much better listening to it that way. I did listen to it again in the car, just, on my way to work, but it just doesn't have the same feel to it, I don't think. Not at all. And I did write some notes down. I definitely love the organ. I believe it's the Hammond organ back in the day that everyone used to use. I love that use of it. And I think because there are literally 3 songs broken up into multiple different sections, it's hard to pick a favourite, but I do love the way they use interludes to, I guess, change or introduce the next section of the song. I think that's really cool. And, they rework the song as it progresses. So a song like Close to the Edge, which is literally almost 19 minutes long, thanks to trusty Wikipedia here, I can see it's got 4 different sections. The hard thing is I haven't listened to it enough times to know where those sections are. But you can definitely hear the progression and how the song morphs and changes. I think my favourite track would have to be, out of the 3, I do like Siberian Katru, if that's how you say it. It's got this really, really cool groove to it. And it just sort of reminds you that prog doesn't have to be rock or metal like it sort of is nowadays. It can be anything. So that was really cool. If you haven't listened to it yet, you don't have to buy the vinyl, but you should definitely go listen to the album. It's spectacular. But I'm really excited for this week's episode as well, as usual. All my guests are amazing. And before we do, if you don't follow me on socials already, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Educate Ebony. Do some little posting there. You can see what I get up to. And if you do like what you hear and you want to give me a rating, that would be amazing. I'd love a couple of stars or more than a couple. It's up to you. But let's get to it. All right, so for this episode of Educate Ebony, the prog edition, I would love to introduce Andrew Cooke. Yes, he is another member of Wildheart. We had Axel and Adam in episode 12 of season 1. And I just like that band so much, I just had to grab their drummer too. So Andrew not only drums for Wildheart, but also Sunsets and Rare Words. He's a busy man because on top of all that, he somehow manages to have a day job teaching, and he also paints some ridiculously cool miniatures. And he's into prog, so Andrew, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me on.
Oh, definitely. You guys have had a huge year so far, and I'm saying this because, eventually when this comes out, you will have already supported Void of Vision and Holding Absence later on, and plus Unify, and plus some other cool stuff. So how's it going?
Yeah, it's been really good. We've kind of been, really happy with the reception to the album at the end of last year. And all the avenues that it's opened up for us. Playing Unify was an absolute amazing experience, and really fortunate to have that opportunity. And from that, it's just onwards and upwards from here. So we have some really exciting stuff to keep the ball rolling and announce over the coming months. But yeah, cannot wait to play with Void of Vision next week. They're one of my favorite bands, so very excited.
Yes, it's going to be great. And since we are talking about prog, and you play in, I guess, a hardcore band, but you like prog. How did you get into prog? Tell me about it.
I guess I just preface this conversation with I'm definitely not the authority on, progressive rock, metal, hardcore, or anything. But I guess, I was kind of introduced to it through going to shows and listening to music and trying to expand, the bands that I listen to. And so it'll tie to the album that I've chosen for today that we can talk about. And it was a local show at Moorfield Community Centre in 2007. When was it? What year was that? No, it was 2009 leading through. And then so the band was Between the Buried and Me. And I think I'd kind of heard of them earlier than that and been listening to them in preparation for the show. And it really kind of like opened my eyes to, you know, different styles of songwriting. So being the drummer growing up through high school, I was like kind of swing and jazz trained and played in the big bands. And yeah, I'd never really seen like that done in heavy music. Like you know, when I started playing in heavy bands and writing heavy music, it was very much like, okay, what does this band do that's really cool? Okay, how do we emulate that? And I'd be like, oh, it's a two-step part here, or oh, it's a heavy part here. But listening to their drummer and then kind of the way that he, you know, would like modify and adapt parts, and it was really eye-opening, and how I could apply that to my songwriting. And then obviously like the band that we've spoken about when we talked about doing this episode was Dream Theater. And I was introduced to Mike Portney through a Brisbane drummer called Grant Collins. So he essentially came around to schools, and that's how I met him and did workshops with kids around drum kit work. And he, you know, at the time had the biggest drum kit in the world, and then was overtaken by Mike Portney. So he was like, yeah, this guy. And we used to kind of have a look at the pictures and try and count how many drums he had. And it was just ridiculous. Like, so that was kind of how I got into Dream Theater and listened to them. And then, yeah, obviously going to shows, then I found Between the Buried and Me, which was really cool. So.
Cool. All right, well, what is the one prog album that I need to hear?
Yeah, so I thought long and hard about it, because then we were like, I had so many ideas, and then you're like, no, it's only one. I was like, oh.
Yes.
So yeah, I wanted to stick with Between the Buried and Me. And the album I chose was the Parallax 2 Future Sequence. And so this was released later. So it was released in 2012. So not that they wouldn't have been playing this when I saw them at Moorfield Community Hall. Gosh, that feels like such a long time ago. But I mean, yeah, this album really like musically like taught me a lot about music and as a composition and as a songwriter, and how to get better. I feel like my kind of writing style changed throughout the years. So like I started in kind of heavy rock and then moved into metalcore. I played pop punk for a while, and each time when I kind of thought like, what works for this song, what works for this part, and then I would modify and adapt and kind of push myself even further. And the drumming that you hear on it, when it's matched up with like guitar parts and bass parts, like really taught me the importance of like a strong, solid rhythm section, for example, like bass and drums working together, but then also how drum fills can mimic guitar licks and vocal melodies. And yeah.
Oh, very cool. I do want to circle back because I'm interested when people talk about their songwriting and stuff. So as a drummer, if you have nothing else going on, like no guitar parts or anything, and you want to write, what do you write? A drum, I don't know what you call it, a drum line, a drum rhythm, a drum.
Yeah, I guess like a part, like a drum part. So, you know, I think in like when writing metalcore, like, I mean, my favorite band was I Killed the Prom Queen. And so I'd go, okay, what does this band do well? And then JJ like was like a really inspirational drummer for me. And I was like, okay, there's a 2-step part here, and then it fills into the next verse. But so I try and replicate that, but not paying so much attention to like fills and like mimicking guitar parts or like gaps or silences. And then when I moved into pop punk, same thing. But then as I started, you know, getting more advanced with my songwriting, I'd sit down with a guitarist or a bass player and go, like, you know, this is where the drums and guitar should line up and do this same fill or this same riff. And then trying different things too, like as far as in my songwriting, I was pretty like straight with how I would structure songs, like, and then moving into pop punk, it's very like verse, chorus, which I loved, but I would not very frequently push my writing style. So when listening to like a band like Between the Buried and Me, and, you know, bands like Chon as well, which is one of the ones that I talked to you about briefly, you know, they really push you to be a better musician, but then also like what works musically around combining parts and things like clean vocals over breakdowns, which like the first time hearing that, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is amazing. Like, you know, so yeah, really pushing and trying to adapt and find what works best for the song. Because ultimately, like, you know, the drum parts don't have to be complex. Like I'm also only one member of the band, but where do things complement each other? And then where are the drums just kind of sitting in the back and letting guitars or vocals do their thing? So yeah, when I listen to bands like this, and this album really kind of pushes me to, you know, improve myself as a drummer, but also my songwriting and composition.
Cool. Okay, so you saw these guys live when they played yonks ago. How did you first hear this album then?
So this one, 2012, this would have been, probably like, I feel like this is like peak Sunsets time. So we were like touring and, it was probably like we put it on in a van, like in a drive back from like Sydney to Brisbane. There was one tour where we did bridge to bridge in like 11 hours, which I thought was pretty good. And I feel like it was one of those, like, you put it on and there's a few people up, there's a few people like playing on the switch or whatever is in the back. And we put it on. You're just like, this is really cool. And you can really lose yourself in songs. Like there's some songs that are a bit shorter, but then there's also your 10-minute songs. And it's really like conceptually something that ebbs and flows like naturally and is therefore really catchy, but really easy to get into, even though it is 10-minute songs and proggy and then the time signature changing, tempo change. And I feel like it was probably like, and one of those, or maybe even like, Dan Field, who like recorded a lot of like my first bands, like Never Lose Sight, Sunsets, maybe he played it for us. Like, but it like, I kind of really got into this album. I can't remember if I saw them again live after this or not. I remember like going and seeing like Misery Signals around about this time. And, that was one of the bands I found through them as well. I think the first time I saw Misery Signals was around about the same time, 2008, 2009. So.
Good time for it, apparently. All around that era. I just missed it completely. I don't know where I was.
Bands like Dillinger Escape Plan as well. Like, I was lucky enough to see them on their last tour in New York when I was there before COVID, obviously restricted us from traveling. But like really opened up my eyes to that kind of genre. I mean, Incubus were another one. Like I used to like froth the album Signs when I was in high school. I guess that's kind of proggy, but.
Oh, yeah.
Like always kind of try to push myself as a drummer and listen to different styles and whatnot, and not just be like, all I listen to is hardcore because I love beatdowns. But
yeah, definitely. Well, when you listen to this album or any other prog album, I guess, for example, the first time you hear it or the second or the third, are you analysing straight away, or what kind of a listener are you? Do you like to just enjoy it and be like, yeah, that was really great, and then be like, hang on a minute, why was it really great, and then go into it from there?
No, I think it's definitely just listening to it. Like even after multiple listens, I can like, if I'm trying to go back and like, play a part, for example, like, oh, that fill was really cool. How would I play that? And it actually takes a lot to kind of break it down and then go, okay, this is what it would look like on a drum kit. But yeah, as far as like song structure, like it can be, really cool to take inspiration. When I'm writing, I find like having a pen and paper or a notepad or like on just your notes on your phone and structuring it out like can really help. So if I'm doing that for my own songwriting, like I might go, oh, that part was really cool. What did they do? So it was like, 18 bars or 16 bars or whatever of this, and then a 2-bar phrase, and then it moved into a chorus or something, for example. I mean, this album has a lot of those little transition bars, which are really cool. Like there's an accordion section, like
what?
It's really cool. So yeah, going back and listening to it and finding where parts change and whatnot can be really cool. There's something, I'm pretty sure it's on this album, but there's like a recurring motif of like a riff that comes back in a little bit differently. And you're like, oh, there's that riff again. And, so that like, it's really cool to go and listen back and find those. I mean, in preparation for this podcast, I put it back on. I've been spinning it a fair bit again. And yeah, you can really get lost in it. So it's great.
So you think that's what makes this album so great? You just lose your mind, listen to it all day?
Yeah, I think so. And it has, I think it has something for everyone. Like that's what I love about this band is like, you've got kind of like that old like hardcore kind of 2-step parts. You've got blast beats, which like the drummer is really tight. Like doing blasting on recording. Like I only have a few parts in Wildheart where there's blast beats, and even that, it's like you do it, take stops. One more time. One more time. Wait, that felt straight. Nope. One more time. And it can be really challenging to get it nice and crisp and clean and the same consistency with the velocity of your hits. But he just does it flawlessly. I think it's really cool. There's like flamenco guitar bits. There's like the accordion parts. And so it has a little bit of something for everyone, even if like this is not really the style of band you'd go and just kind of pick up and listen to. Like, I mean, some people like, would pick up Dream Theater and listen to it all the time. Some people maybe not. But I think you can pick this album up and spin it through and you'll find everyone will find something they like in there.
Ah, so you're just going to tell your year 12s to sit down, do your study. I'm just going to put this in the background, just educate you guys a little bit.
I don't know. I don't know if they listen to heavy music or not. So I think a few have found Wildheart. It's pretty easy
Cool.
too, but yeah.
All right, we'll get there. All right, well, I guess through your, yeah, one day, I guess through your, musical career as well, when did you realize this was an important album to you?
Probably like hard to tell. Like with the album, yeah, probably around that time when I was like, I want to keep pushing my songwriting. Like I remember the process going into the second Sunset EP was very, very different. We went in and recorded the first two singles off it, like as pre-production. And we hired out a venue and we went in and we just ran the one song like over and over and over again. And so it was maybe like a 6 hour session in there, just running the one song to make sure that every time we played a fill, the fill was the same. Every time we played a guitar lick, the guitar lick was the same. And not really something we had done before. And I think, you know, a lot of how tight bands like this and this album can get on a recording really inspired us to go in and you know, mimic that, like that process. We really wanted everything to line up and not go in to the studio and play something one way, you know, the first time, but then play it differently the second. Every time you play it, you know, if you need to drop in halfway through a bar, you can come exactly back in where you left off because you're playing it the same every time. And that, like, we kind of, you know, we recorded the first EP as a band on the cheap, and then moving into this one, put a bit more money into it. But this was the first time, you know, musically, I'd kind of been this rigorous. And then I replicate that in Wildheart. Like every recording I've done with Wildheart, I try and push myself a little bit further as a drummer. And so I always want it to be perfect. And I love working with Gaz, who's our engineer, because he'll push me. He'll be like, one more time. You know, just get it as tight as possible. So it's great in that he holds me accountable and doesn't let me settle if it's, you know, not up to scratch. So yeah, I've really kind of taken that as inspiration in my songwriting and recording and writing music to make sure that each time I'm pushing myself, not making the music harder or more like challenging or complex just for the sake of it, but just pushing myself. What's a better way I could write this? What's a cool fill I could put here? You know, what's something I haven't tried before? And then, you know, then the live show steps up, the recording steps up, and it's all just, you know, improving myself.
Yeah, it's just, what would Between the Buried and Me do? Someone say that acronym.
Accordion, flamenco guitar. Yeah.
Chuck it in. I'm sure the boys won't mind. No.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely not. Well, for the regular listener like me, is there an aspect of this album that you really love that I might overlook on the first couple listens? What should I look out for?
Well, I mean, I think with, you know, with a prog album, because there is a lot going on and it can be complex in parts, I think listening out for like the simple, like there's a 2-step part in, I wrote it down, which song was it? Maybe it's like track 2, I think, Astral Body, or track 3 maybe, Lay Your Ghost to Rest. Like there's these just really cool like guitar, drums, 2-step parts, and it's just really riffy and you get stuck into it. And, you know, then you're into the next riff and it's like busy again. And I really like listening through and just kind of getting caught in that. So that's what I'd be listening for, is like cool parts that you're like, oh, this is, you know, this grabs my attention. Because then you move into the next part and you'll be like, oh, what's happening here? Oh, then it moves into blasting, or there might be like a kind of bridge section that's a bit softer. So finding those parts that you like and really latching onto them, going, that was cool. Like,
yeah, I like that. Well, obviously you chose it and the year is 2022, but why do you think it would stand up in future years?
I think it definitely stands up. I think like if you listen to their newer stuff now, the production quality keeps stepping up, obviously, because the technology and, you know, the engineering process and quality has improved. But I think as far as like as an album, it definitely still holds up. Again, the songwriting is awesome. You know, it pushes the envelope, it challenges, you know, I'm sure them as musicians, but also like what songwriting looks like, even for prog bands. And yeah, I just like, it's cool that a couple of the albums have remastered versions on Spotify, which I'm not sure when the remastered versions went up, but it's cool to go back and listen to those old songs that like we would have had in a CD folder outside art class, being like, hey, check this band out. It was like, I think it was like Killing with a Smile by Parkway in 2005 in the CD folder, and, you know, take this and listen to it. And, you know, so it's cool hearing music from that era, and you know, it feels weird saying that era. I'm not that old, but yeah, it feels really cool to have that music and then remaster it and still be able to listen to it and hold up and take ideas and inspiration from it.
Yeah, that is cool. I kind of wish we still had the CD books, to be honest. That's pretty awesome.
I'm sure I've got one somewhere.
Yeah, in the car, in the flip down visor. All slid in there. Maybe not. We've moved on for good. Yeah, my favorite question, because we're going to talk about listening to it. What are my listening notes? How should I be listening to it? What do you recommend?
Like a device, or like what? Like like, or at the gym, or like
I mean, should I be doing something? Should I be in the certain mind space? Like,
I mean, I had it was funny, like I had it on at the gym Tuesday, and I think like it was like the first time I'd been back in the gym for a while. Got on the treadmill, and then the kind of accordion, like circusy style part kind of comes on. I'm like jogging along on the treadmill, like having a great time. I'm sure got a couple of weird looks, but anyway.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, look, it's really good music for long drives. Like I said, like that. I remember, I'm sure it was this album like we would have had on touring, and probably like, you know, it was like 3 a.m. somewhere, like driving back from Sydney from a show, and yeah, it was like that was a really cool time to be able to just put it on and listen to it, because like I've been listening to it on the drive to work, but my drive to work's like, I don't know, 15 minutes, so that's one song. So yeah, it's definitely good for long drives. Gym's pretty funny, but there is some tough parts in there, so if you want to go and lift something heavy, it's cool for that too. And yeah, just good headphones, because there's a lot of like left right splits and
I love that,
you know, stereo parts that come through. So
that's my favorite. I like really satisfying things. I was saying this, literally I spoke to Jim Gray from Caligula's Horse, and we were talking about like satisfying things. I'm like, when the windscreen wipers just line up, that's so good, you know? So anything satisfying, left, right, oh, I'm into it.
the indicator going with the tempo of the song.
That's the best. Yeah. Maybe we'll go to the gym and we'll just like lift weights in time with the music.
I do that all the time. Yeah.
Oh, no one knows, but you know, it's great.
Yeah, like this looks really cool. No one else can hear it, but it looks really cool.
Yeah, like I'm awesome. Yeah, that's what it is. Well, is there anything else you want to add about the album before we wrap it up?
No, I think we kind of spoke about it musically. I thought like I really enjoyed when we were talking about this at Unify. I can't remember how it came up. I think maybe
I don't know. Yeah.
Was it because we were going to watch Plenty? And so we were talking about like prog stuff, and we were talking about Chon, but yeah, like I'm really glad we did end up catching up and getting to do this episode, because it was funny that how it came up, but that was a good chat at Unify.
It was.
It was hard to narrow down to one album, because I had so many ideas in my mind.
Yeah, I'll bet.
One album.
I think you were heartbroken. You're like, what? No.
I had to go and ask people. I was like, "A Misery Signals prog? Can I talk about them?" And they're like, "Oh, you probably go a bit more."
No, but the thing is, like, prog can be anything almost. People have such a different idea of it. So
yeah, well, there's so many good like prog albums. Like, yeah, we talked about Dream Theater a lot, but I thought I wouldn't choose them. I thought I'd try and find something a bit different. And yeah, really, just this album kind of again pushes the envelope with songwriting, and definitely like for aspiring drummers, like pushing yourself and not getting comfortable. I mean, it was really easy after, like, because I was again swing and jazz trained, and I never used that in music, and it wasn't until like late days of Never Lose Sight where we wrote a song in 3/4, and we thought that was like, oh, this is, you know, really progressive. And then I just kind of, the more I learn about music and the more I push myself, you know, the more surprised I am. I can play this, and this sounds really cool. Let's do that again, or let's, you know, try something new and push the envelope. So
that's cool. I like it. Oh, all right, there we have it. The one prog album that Andrew Cooke thinks that you and I should listen to is The Parallax 2 Future Sequence by Between the Buried and Me. Andrew, thank you so much for your wisdom. I can't wait to listen to this from your point of view.
Thanks for having me on. Enjoy.
Anyway, I won't keep you too much from your marking. I'm sure you got A's to give. So
it's going to be a long weekend.